Now, we have annually toasted the clubs and the institutions with which Sir Walter Scott was a member, and this year I will in a moment propose a toast to the Scottish Episcopal Church. Now, Walter Scott, as you probably know, was not actually desperately religious in an overt kind of way, but he was ordained as an elder in Duddingston Kirk in 1806, and in fact he attended the General Assembly as a commissioner for Selkirk in 1806 and 1807. That's information I owe to Peter Garside. In later life, on occasions when he was in Edinburgh, he sometimes attended worship in St John's Church in Princes Street, and later in St Paul's and St George's. And I'm told, although I have not seen it myself, that they have preserved the pew in which he sat. Now, we know from his journal that he used to read morning prayer for his family from the Book of Common Prayer, and it is for that reason and in acknowledgement of its many contributions to Scottish life and culture that I ask you to rise and to join me in a toast to the Scottish Episcopal Church. The Scottish Episcopal Church.
Mr. President, Mr. Chair, firstly, thank you. Thank you very much for the honour of the toast to the Scottish Episcopal Church, and also for your very generous hospitality this evening. As Professor Pittock has indicated, I suppose, in his talk, partly, history is full of ambiguities. It's full of uncertainties and lack of clarity. And in a way, the way in which Walter Scott tells the story of history illustrates this. The way in which one tells the story can make a world of difference, especially if it's told in translation. And so it's perhaps no surprise that Walter Scott's church allegiance is also brimming with ambiguity. Was he a Presbyterian or was he an Episcopalian? And it partly is to do with how you tell the story. Was he a closet Episcopalian who felt that he needed to get alongside folk by playing the game and being part of the Presbyterian Kirk life? Or was he a Presbyterian who, out of respect for his mother's aspects of faith, felt he should attend Episcopal worship every so often? Certainly we know that his mother was a devout Episcopalian. She's buried in the dormitory garden at St John's down at the end of Princes Street. Was it she or was it her son, accounts differ, who described the old St Cuthbert's Church on Lothian Road, not the splendid new building now, or the comparatively new, as the box out of which St John's came. But there's also that pew. It is really there, but it's not in St Paul's and St George's anymore. It's now at St Mary's Cathedral, and at the west end of the south aisle, you will have the chance to see it with a little plaque on it. It is the family pew of the Scott family. So, was he Episcopalian? Was he Presbyterian? I think that's probably the wrong question to ask. I gather that it was quite common for people of that age, particularly well-to-do people, to cover both bases. So they might have been devotees of the Kirk in the country, but Episcopal Church in the town. They might have gone to the Kirk in the morning, the Episcopal Church in the evening. And this wasn't to hedge their bets for the next life. It was, I think, really because they found value and worth in attending both. For people like me, people in my kind of role, of course I have to spend my time defending fine points of doctrine and church practice. But for the average layperson, they can be much more pragmatic than I can be. For laity then, as now, it's a much more pragmatic question. After all, didn't Jesus pray that all his followers would be one? And don't we know that by God's grace we see distinctive examples of holiness in every Christian tradition? We've long known this, and therefore it's good that officially it was recognised between the Church of Scotland and the Scottish Episcopal Church last autumn when we signed the St Andrew's Declaration. However, for this evening, I am proud to acknowledge Sir Walter Scott as an Episcopalian. But I'm proud of Sir Walter for another reason. And to explain my pride, I have to remind you of the story of Mucklemouth Meg. I'm sure she has figured in the annals of this august society many times, not least because she was a grandmother with many greats to Scott himself. And you'll know the story of William Scott, who, when faced with the choice of the hangman's noose for his thieving or marrying Meg, eventually, after some persuading, chose the second. Now, whether that story is exactly true or not, it does seem that they married, and indeed that they had a very successful, loving marriage, and we'll be pleased about this, they produced offspring. Now, my family tradition has it that on my mother's side, I too am descended from the family of Murrays of Elibank. And Mucklemouth Meg, of course, was Agnes Murray, daughter of Sir Gideon Murray of Elibank. Now, if that's the case, that makes Sir Walter a cousin of sorts. And I'm so pleased that he's brought credit on his family. And I'm sure that he would appreciate the language when I say that the boy done well. But again, I must admit of ambiguities here, because Borders surnames, as you probably know, like Highland ones, could be acquired for all sorts of reasons, good and bad. And families' oral histories, such as mine, are often suspect. And anyway, if you go far enough back, all of us have common ancestors, so all of us are cousins. Anyway, cousin or not, Episcopalian or not, Sir Walter's legacy is more than a family affair. It's more than the stuff of denominational competition, because he belongs to Scotland. Indeed, as the professor has illustrated, he very much belongs to humanity. And therefore I'm grateful and delighted to join you in affirming that this evening. Thank you.
Bishop, thank you very much indeed. As another person who is both, I was actually confirmed by an English bishop, but ordained in the Church of Scotland. This mingling of our traditions is an important one and an enrichment for the country, and I'm most grateful for the way in which you've drawn these facets together. Thank you. Now, Madeleine Mackenzie, we normally ask a person if someone is willing to give a general vote of thanks, and Madeleine Mackenzie has agreed to do so. So Madeleine, could I ask you to come forward, please?
Thank you, Ian. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests and fellow members, it's a great pleasure on this election day to propose the last vote of the day. A vote of thanks to all those who have made our 112th annual dinner such an enjoyable occasion. And I have a number of thanks to offer. First and foremost, our club president, Professor Murray Pittock, has shown us Scott from a new perspective this evening with an interesting and instructive examination of Scott and speed. We've been taken on a most enjoyable tour by rail, by water and by road, and we've looked at the connections between travel and Scott's novels and poetry. We've heard about the impact of technology and Cook's tours on the popularity of Scott, both his works and places associated with him, and it's all really been fascinating. As club members, we take delight in the fact that Waverley is the only railway station in the world that's named after a novel. But I, for one, didn't know about the long tradition of naming locomotives after the Scott novels. I'm sure you'll agree that Professor Pittock has given us much to think about, not least the medieval and the modern connections with Scott. So our thanks to you, Mr. President, for a most memorable toast to the memory of Sir Walter. Then I think I'm right in saying, but should have checked with Lee, that this is the first time that there's been a toast to the Scottish Episcopal Church at one of our annual dinners. Bishop John has literally graced us this evening, and then it's been a privilege and a pleasure to listen to his reply to the toast. He's taken us into the world of ambiguity, and then he's provided a very elegant solution to it. So our thanks for your great reply to the toast. May I also offer our thanks to all the new club staff under the direction of Joseph, who've looked after us so well this evening and provided a delicious meal. Thanks also to our club secretary, Dr. Michael Wood, and treasurer Lee Simpson for making all the arrangements for this evening. And finally, our thanks to our club chairman, Professor Sir Iain Torrance, for his stylish and gracious chairing of this evening's proceedings. So please join me in expressing thanks in the usual
way. Madeline, thank you very much. Thank you for your generous words. Now, before we go, let me give you a little news about the club. Our AGM will be on the 2nd of June, and after formal business, Ian Chisholm will speak to us on Scott as an historian. Now, as I think probably everyone knows, this year we celebrate the bicentenary of the visit of George IV to Edinburgh, the first royal person since the coronation of Charles II. And there will be a dinner in the new club on the 17th of August. This is actually a new club dinner rather than a Scott club dinner, but we're helping a little bit because prior to dinner we hope that there will be a demonstration of some dances by Dr. Alina Shrakova's group, and which will certainly be new. And Alistair Hutton will be the after-dinner speaker. And we're also hoping that there'll be an excursion to Holyrood House in August to see the site of the events in 1822, and that there will be a talk by Emma Thompson, who's a curator, on the 22nd of September, and more details will be published in the newsletter by Michael. But thank you all again for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the meal. It has been extremely good to see you and to share your company, and safe travel and good health.